What's up? Connecting. Wow, Hawkeye episode 5. Spoilers. Get into it real quick right in a second here. I wasn't going to do a spoiler stream tonight because I wasn't planning on waking up for Hawkeye. I was just too tired when I went to bed last night. Didn't set an alarm. Kids aren't feeling good still, so I wasn't planning on getting up and watching it and doing the stream. But my body woke me up a little after 1 anyways, so I was like, fuck it, I guess I have to do it. My natural alarm clock is telling me that I should go watch Hawkeye 5 and then get on the internet and spoil it for people. And, wow. Hawkeye spoilers, that's in the title. You clicked on the video. We finally got Kingpin. We haven't actually seen him. We've seen an image of him, and so we can't confirm that Vincent D'Onofrio's coming back as Kingpin. A lot of suspicions have been confirmed. Also, theories that people have had and whatnot. Theories that I have had. Yeah, this episode. All right, I'll get into it now, I guess. Let me, Oh. Sorry about that. Okay. So, last week's episode, I did like. But, I said, and I watched it again, and I still think this, that was mostly a filler episode. It serviced simply to get us from point A to point B. That's why it was a shorter episode, even though I think this one was not a filler episode, but it was about the same length. I'm not entirely sure. Last week, the important information came at the beginning and at the end of the episode. There wasn't a whole lot of progression through. That was all just kind of relationship building and that kind of thing throughout the main parts of the episode. Like I said, it heated up at the end, and where we left off was excuse me. Where we left off was Clint telling Kate Bishop that they're done. This has gotten really real. Someone's hired a Black Widow to come get them, or to kill them, or kill him, or kill Ronan. Not entirely sure the context that they're not at the time. He said things have gotten way too serious. This little pal superhero thing we've been doing, it's done. It's way too dangerous. Get out of here. Go home. And that's basically where that episode ended. And one thing I thought about that, which I should have mentioned on last week's stream, which I thought was kind of funny, was the fact that they've been being chased by the mob. They've been kidnapped. Someone has tried to kill them several times throughout this whole thing. And yet now the stakes are real. That kind of shows you what they are trying to do with the Black Widow as a character arc, I guess. Because now we know, because of Black Widow, the movie, that there was multiple Black Widows, or multiple widows, as they call them. And now the stakes are really high. Now it's too dangerous. The tracksuit mafia, we can handle them. The bumbling henchmen, that's nothing to worry about, but we could get in a car chase and a shootout on the bridge. Your life's in danger easily, probably 10 times just in that one chase. But now the game has changed. Now the stakes are different. And so, yeah, I guess I'll just get into the episode right away. It starts off in a flashback. We get to see Yelena, what happens to her during the blip. And what happens is she gets blipped. She's out there trying to put the antidote on somebody, and some kind of conversation happens. The person they're trying to save is actually just like a hired killer, not a widow, as far as if I understood that correctly. She goes into the bathroom, turns to dust. 5 years later, she comes back. She's trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And then I think that they were like, oh, you've been gone for 5 years, but, and the girl's like, oh, look, I figured my life out and everything like this. And I can't remember if those characters were in Black Widow, the movie, or not. I don't think so. It seemed like it was just another job. But anyways, that shows you where she's at. Her character did get blipped, and so now she's kind of getting filled in on everything that has happened. And at this time, too, we know that, Natasha's already dead at this point, if everybody's coming back. But the world doesn't necessarily know that Natasha's dead because she dies, and then everybody gets unblipped basically at the same time. So the news would have broke later that, oh yeah, she gave her life to save everybody, or however they wanted to do that. Then the movie starts. Kate goes home. She's all beat up, and she talks to her mom. And her mom's like, holy shit, what happened? This has to do with Hawkeye, right? I knew he was going to get you in trouble. And I'll get to this later, but I had suspicions about the mom, as did everybody. And yeah, we're totally right. So shout out to everybody who was right about that theory. Anyway, she tells her mom, like, we're in deep shit. Hawkeye said we're done. We're not partners anymore. And she said, I got to tell you, we were looking into Jack, and turns out that Sloan Company he works for, he works for a company called Sloan, and it's a money laundering front for this mafia group called the Tracksuits. And her mom's just like, okay. She just takes it, like, acts like she doesn't have anything to do with this, or, is surprised. But you can see the wheels turning. She's like, okay, I got to try to get myself out of this now. Meanwhile, at the same time, Maya is now... This is the aftermath of the big fight at the end of the episode last week. So Kate goes home, talks to her mom. Maya goes home, and she's telling Kazi about Yelena, and says there was someone else on the roof. Like, someone else is after Hawkeye. It's not just us. Shit got really crazy. We don't know who this is. They're trying to figure it out. And Kazi once again, or Kazi, I don't know. He asks her to stop. Like, we're gonna get hurt. This is getting pretty dangerous. Can we be done chasing after him? And she says no. Okay, so she's not done with Hawkeye, even though things have gotten a lot more dangerous now. But he agrees to kill Ronan, and then they're done. Which at this point, you don't actually know if they know that Hawkeye's Ronan. It's pretty clear because they were stalking him pretty good. They had all the information about his family and everything like that. But it seemed like most of the tracksuits, when they originally caught Hawkeye, they didn't think that he was Ronan. But now, I guess these two guys, and maybe they knew the whole time, but the rest of the mafia didn't. But now they know that he's Ronan. At least that's the way I took it. But it's possible they still don't know. But I think they're trying to kill Hawkeye at this point. Then Kate goes home to grab her things. She's gonna stay with Mom for the night, and Yelena's waiting in her apartment. And that's a pretty funny exchange. There's a lot of that kind of Tarantino-esque, where the villains are giving silly banter back and forth, but nonetheless, they end up talking, and let's see, Yelena made mac and cheese and offered some of it to Kate, and it's funny because Kate lives the way I do, where Yelena's like criticizing her because she doesn't have any real cutlery. She's just got like plastic forks or something, and she only had one, and so that was kind of funny to see. Meanwhile, Hawkeye, he's on his own at this point, so he goes to the only guy he knows, Grills, the LARPer. It's funny how he's kind of becoming a part of the story now. They keep having to, as annoying as that was for him, and even for the people watching how really we're doing this LARP thing, now these guys have actually been introduced as characters that have come in multiple episodes, so that's kind of interesting. You don't see a whole lot what happens there at first, because then it cuts back to Kate at home in her apartment talking to Yelena. And Yelena does the whole, look, if I wanted to kill you, you'd have been dead already thing. And then, let's see. Oh, yeah, they talk about Christmas, and there was a funny line in there, because she said, she said, "Oh yeah, I love New York," and talks about all the sightseeing she wants to do and everything like that. And it's funny because this is should be a hostile conversation, but this is where they kind of lower the stakes and they're trying to be funny. And there's a quote in there, "Oh, I love the story of Christmas. You know, Rudolph the superpower reindeer." And then talk about, "Have you ever eaten reindeer?" And it was just kind of funny conversation back and forth. And she shows how she knows a lot about Kate. She says, "I know your mom's name. I know when your dad died, all this information." So it's kind of like letting her know to back the fuck off, kind of. If she tries to kill Clint again, she better not intervene. But then she also does say that this is an assignment. So then it's revealed that, oh, if I took that the right way, somebody did hire you to come do this job. And last week when we were talking about it, I didn't think that was really clear. I thought, okay, Hawkeye thinks somebody was hired, but in reality, she's just after him because she thinks that he killed her sister, was the way that I took it. But no, now it sounds like, okay, she actually is doing this on an assignment. It's not just avenge killing. And explains to her how, she's wondering, why do you like Clint so much? Why do you have his back so much? She says, he saved the world. She goes, no, he didn't. My sister did. And so that's the reveal, like, holy shit, this is Black Widow's sister. Then she leaves. She says, "Thank you for the girls' night," and once again threatens, says, "Do not get in my way." And then she jumps out through the window and goes down a zip line or something because you can't just use the front door. Meanwhile, Clint's still hanging out with Grills, and he decides he's going to stay there for the night. He went over there to drop the dog off because he didn't want to leave the dog by itself. I hope the dog gets more action in the final episode. That's what's crazy. I think we're down to one episode now. But Grills goes, "Nah, you're staying here tonight too. Hawkeye doesn't need to stay in a hotel." Then you cut back to Kate. She's going home, and the cops are there arresting Jack. Which is funny because the cops are still after Kate. That hasn't been followed up on at all. That was introduced like in the first episode. They said, "Hey, your apartment was set on fire last night. You need to come down and talk to us." And there's been so much going on. The tracksuits, Yelena, the cops were really at the bottom of the list on things they had to deal with, and they haven't revisited that yet. So I'm assuming she'll get arrested because these cops obviously weren't there for her. They were there for Jack, which I'm undecided on if Jack is just kind of a patsy idiot or if he has a really evil character. I know he's based on a character called the Swordsman or something like that, but I don't know how much they're actually pulling from that. And I don't even know if that character was a villain. But this guy might just be like kind of an awkward asshole. He might not actually be anything nefarious. And now we know who the real villain is, which is Mom. Like I said, that suspicion was confirmed. Spoiler alert, I'll get to that in a little bit. And she totally threw him under the bus. He's getting arrested, and he says, "Oh, this is a total misunderstanding." And I don't know where to go with that. Either he really believes that, he might be involved in some things. Obviously, she's involved with it too, but, it's possible he doesn't even know that he's been put up this way, or this could all be a total setup. It's interesting to see. He maintains his innocence and says, "I'll be back. This will all get cleared up. No big deal." And then, meanwhile, Hawkeye is at the, I believe it's the Avengers Tower. It's like a historical site now, which is cool. It's got a plaque, and it says, "This is where the Avengers first assembled. Yeah, and it's got the date, whatever, 2012, and it's got all their names listed. And he turns his hearing aid off, and he just talks to Natasha, same way you would if you're visiting a gravesite or a memorial for somebody like that. And he apologizes to her again, for everything that happened and thanks her. But then he says, "I'm sorry for what I'm about to do," basically, like, "I hope you can forgive me." And that's when you start getting the feeling like, shit, Ronan's going to come out again to try to put an end to all of this. Because there's a lot at stake now. We don't know entirely what's going on with his family, with the watch. It seemed like for the majority of the show up until the end of the last episode, he was more just trying to protect Kate Bishop, just this random girl. Now he's got to protect himself and his family a lot more. And he was always kind of protecting himself anyways because, he was the actual Ronin. But so he calls his wife and he, let's see. Okay, he calls his wife. He says, look, she has the watch. And at this point, again, he mentions that this is getting way too crazy now. It's only a matter of time before the big guy gets involved. So another reference to him, who I already spoiled, we found out at the end. That's Vincent D'Onofrio. And then he says, look, I got to end this. And she basically says, okay. And so at that point, I'm going, okay, we're getting Ronin tonight. He's shutting this shit down. No more fucking around, no more games. And so he meets up with Kazi. Or no, the two tracksuit guys, two of the gangsters. This is why they remind me of a Tarantino movie, because they're driving in the truck and they're talking about, I think, The Sopranos and Rum DMC, and an arrow comes through the window, and there's a note attached to it, and it says, to Maya, meet me at the place where you first met the Ronin. So this is where Maya's dad and all his co-workers, and I'm not sure if she had any other family members in there or not. You assume she did, but this is where they were all slaughtered by the Ronin. And we find out that that's the used car lot. And so he shows up there, and they're planning on ambushing him. She's there talking to him, but of course she can't hear anything, so she doesn't realize that all her henchmen that she have staged throughout the area are just getting knocked out because Ronin's back. But it's not really Ronin, because I don't think he actually kills any of them. He definitely doesn't kill Kazi. That's the first guy that we see him kind of go after, or we see him take out, rather. And we see that character again, so we know he didn't die. And it seemed like a lot of the characters were just getting knocked out and dragged away. Then they get into a big fight, and like I said, this is at a used car lot. Yeah, this is where her family got slaughtered. Repeating myself now. They get into it. Then he comes to Maya. It's a one-on-one fight. She gets the sword at one point. It's real crazy, and then he gets her down, and to where he could kill her if he wanted to. He reveals himself, but like I said, they pretty much already knew that, and he threatens her one last time, which is why this isn't really the return of Ronin, because Ronin would have just iced everybody right there. But he threatens her one last time and says, look, leave my family alone. Do not come after my family. This is it. She's getting pissed off hearing this. At one point, she kind of catches him off guard. She gets the sword from him. She's in a position where she could really take him out, and then an arrow shoots the sword out of her hand. Kate Bishop has returned. She's across the way. Oh, okay. Before Kate Bishop shows up, actually, he lets her know that when he was there that night, killing her dad and killing everybody, he had been tipped off by an informant who worked for her boss, who is the big guy. And she doesn't, that's when she starts getting mad, and then eventually gets the sword and tries to kill him. And then, she kind of runs off after Kate shoots the sword out of her hand, and she goes and meets with Kazi, and he's like, look, sorry, he came out of nowhere. I don't know what happened, blah, blah, blah. And then she goes, she's asking him, why weren't you here that night? I guess she'd never thought about this before, that I guess Kazi was her dad's right-hand man, and the night that her dad was killed, this meeting that they were having, Kazi wasn't there. And Hawkeye's Ronin is telling her that he was tipped off by an informant, somebody in that organization. And so now the wheels are turning, where she thinks, oh shit, this is my boyfriend, the main guy here, might have killed my dad, or at least gotten my dad killed. Which, that's just another story arc among the thousands that have been, introduced into the show so far. It sucks that it's almost done. And I guess it'll depend on how they end this series to know if it'll come back or not, or at least how it'll come back, if these characters will spin off into their own different shows. But back to the show, then Kate gets there, and he says, okay, so this is a rescue mission. What, do you have an escape plan? And she goes, yeah, and an Uber pulls up, and he's like, oh, are you Yolanda or something like that? I can't remember the name. And so they get in the Uber, and they go back to Grill's place. And then she ends up telling him, look, that woman that we were fighting on the roof last night, she came to my apartment. She says she's Natasha's sister. And so then Clint goes, ah, shit, that's Yelena. Like, he knows who she is. They're hanging out with Grills and the dog. This is where the episode ends. You see, it keeps cutting from them hanging out in Grills' apartment with the dog to Yelena is following somebody who then you see, oh, that's Mom. She's following Mom. And then she texts Kate and says, I found the name of the person who hired me. Just thought you should know. And it's her mom's name. And then with that is a picture of her mom with Kingpin. So she shows that to Hawkeye. Who's my mom with here? And he's like, that's the big guy. That's who I've been talking about. That's the episode. There are so many things that need to come to a close unless they're going to leave us on a cliffhanger for a season 2 or for a spin-off show or something. But we now know that Mom is some evil, nefarious character, which a lot of people suspected from the beginning just because she was giving off like a cunty vibe. But now I don't know if they'll be able to, how they'll reveal this, or if anybody would actually be able to find out or not. But like, we're all pretty sure that Mom killed Dad, and we knew that there was more going on as far as the auction and everything like that from the beginning, that it wasn't just Jack. And Jack could just be, I mean, obviously he probably knows that she's into some bad shit, but he might not know the extent of it, and certainly doesn't know that he's being set up to look like the Kingpin, basically, even though he's not at all. And everybody's very scared of Kingpin, even Hawkeye, which that kind of adds another layer of interest to it for me, because we haven't seen those characters before. And you'd think that somebody who was on the Avengers, who's gone up against Thanos and all these other big bads, Kingpin would be someone he could just easily take out. But the issue is the giant crime network he's built. He's just so powerful. So I'm really curious to see where this goes. And this is not in any kind of multiverse. These aren't variants or anything like this. This is in the exact universe of the Avengers. So I know, like, at the end of Hawkeye, or I mean, not at the end of Hawkeye, at the end of Venom, it's revealed that, okay, now they're in the same world as, the MCU. But but they weren't. For those 2 Venom movies, they were not taking place in the actual universe of the existing Marvel movies. But now they're jumped kind of into it because of what happens in No Way Home, which I am super stoked to talk about on Thursday night, spoiler show. Keep an eye out for that. But where was I going with that? Oh, okay. So I wasn't sure if they do decide to introduce characters from these other existing shows, mainly these Netflix shows, which now we know that all those characters do for sure exist in the universe. We knew that the shows always identified themselves as existing in the universe, but that doesn't really matter because they've never been acknowledged at all in any of the films. But now we know that those worlds are all the same, so this sets up all kind of possibilities for everybody to either come back in a Marvel movie. I'm not sure. I have tried to avoid spoilers, so I don't know if Daredevil's in Spider-Man or not, but I'm guessing that everybody was saying that was a speculation. There's a chance he is. So we'll have to wait and see. But one more episode of Hawkeye. I hope it's a long one because I don't know how they're going to wrap this thing up. I have a feeling we're going to be left hanging a little bit. And then I don't know. I think they might have already announced a season 2. But if not, I guess we'll find out next week. I think I'm right about that. I think there's only one episode left, which is a bummer because this show has been awesome. And like I said, I think I won't rank it as a show until it's all the way done. But right now, I'm liking it better than any of the Marvel shows that have come before. And that one episode, episode 3, that was my favorite Marvel thing. Besides Far From Home. It's kind of hard to compare the two because we're talking about like a 40-minute episode versus a whole movie, which the Spider-Man movies have been awesome all the way across the board. But that, just with the car chase scene and the humor in that and the relationship building between Kate and Hawkeye in that was a perfect mini Marvel movie, I think. That was a classic Marvel in my mind and my favorite Marvel thing, I think, since Endgame. If not definitely since Far From Home. And WandaVision was awesome, so that's actually pretty high praise. That'll do it. Going on little less than half an hour, but that's okay, because like I said, I wasn't intending on doing this tonight anyways. But my body said, no, let's wake up and watch Hawkeye. Doing midnight movie talk tonight. That comes out at 11 p.m. Mountain Time. Live here, talking about all the movie news that has come out throughout the day, because I have a feeling we'll get some announcements later today. As I've been saying, usually with a big blockbuster coming out, other studios try to capitalize on the excitement, and so we'll see if that happens. We might get some cool trailers or maybe some cool movie announcements or something like that today. So come back right here for Midnight Movie Talk. That'll do it for Hawkeye Episode 5, and I'll also see you next week for Hawkeye Episode 6 if you're not going to watch some Midnight Movie Talks. But join me here next week for the final episode of Hawkeye. Thanks.